Jake, Serena and Holly were out in search of the perfect spot to take some photos for a nature blog they had just started. They had been friends since college, sharing a mutual love for the outdoors and photography. This blog was their latest adventure, a way to combine their passions and share them with the world. They had heard about Black Hollow Forest from a local guidebook, which described it as a hidden gem, untouched by modern civilization. Black Hollow Forest was known for its untouched beauty and diverse wildlife. The forest was a sanctuary for many rare species of plants and animals, making it a paradise for nature enthusiasts and photographers alike. The trio was excited to capture the essence of this pristine wilderness and share it with their growing audience. It was the kind of place that seemed frozen in time, dense with towering trees and underbrush that made it feel like stepping back centuries. The forest floor was carpeted with a thick layer of moss, and the air was filled with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. It was easy to lose oneself in the tranquility of the surroundings, forgetting the hustle and bustle of the outside world. What they didn't know was that it wasn't just wildlife that roamed the forest. Legends spoke of ancient spirits and mysterious beings that guarded the heart of Black Hollow. Locals often warned visitors to stay on the marked trails and avoid venturing too deep into the woods. But Jake, Serena and Holly were too captivated by the beauty of the forest to heed these warnings. The smell of pine and rich soil filled the air as they set off early in the afternoon. The sun was high in the sky, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. They followed a narrow trail that wound its way through the trees, stopping occasionally to take photos and marvel at the natural beauty around them. The deeper they went, the more surreal the surroundings became. The trees grew taller and denser, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out much of the sunlight. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the forest seemed to grow louder, echoing through the trees like whispers from another world. The trees seemed to whisper as the wind passed through their leaves. It was as if the forest was alive, communicating in a language that only it understood. The trio felt a sense of awe and reverence, as if they were intruding on something sacred. Every step on the soft ground felt deliberate, as if the forest itself were trying to guide or trap them. The path grew narrower and more overgrown, and they had to push through thick underbrush to continue. It was as if the forest was testing their resolve, challenging them to prove their worth. The further they went, the more they felt the weight of an invisible gaze on them. It was an unsettling feeling, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. They exchanged uneasy glances, but none of them wanted to be the first to suggest turning back. As they wandered, Jake noticed the sound of drums in the distance, faint but rhythmic, like a pulse in the heart of the woods. He stopped in his tracks, straining to hear more clearly. The sound was mesmerizing, drawing him deeper into the forest. "Do you guys hear that?" he asked, stopping in his tracks. Serena and Holly paused, listening intently. The drumming was faint but unmistakable, a steady beat that seemed to resonate with the very soul of the forest. Holly strained her ears, nodding slowly. "Yeah, I hear it. It's like chanting. Or, maybe drumming." She looked around, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. Serena shook her head. "Probably just some hunters," she said, trying to sound nonchalant. But there was a hint of doubt in her voice. The sound was too rhythmic, too deliberate to be the work of hunters. But as dusk began to settle, the mood shifted. The light grew dimmer, and the shadows lengthened, creating an eerie atmosphere. The forest, which had seemed so welcoming in the daylight, now felt ominous and foreboding. The air smelled metallic, and the once welcoming woods turned sinister. The drumming grew louder, and the chanting became more distinct. It was as if the forest itself was coming alive, revealing its darker side. Jake checked his phone. No signal. They were completely cut off from the outside world, alone in the heart of the forest. The realization sent a chill down his spine. The woods had a way of doing that. It was easy to lose one's bearings in the dense underbrush and towering trees. The path they had been following seemed to disappear, swallowed up by the forest. but now they couldn't even find the path they had come down. It was as though the woods had shifted behind them, erasing their tracks and leaving them disoriented and lost. It was as though the woods had shifted behind them. The trees seemed to close in, creating a labyrinth of shadows and darkness. Panic began to set in as they realized they were trapped. The drumming grew louder, accompanied by low, guttural chants. Panic set in. The sound was all around them, echoing through the trees and filling the air with a sense of impending doom. They began to jog, then sprint through the woods, the sound of their footsteps mingling with the crack of breaking branches. Their hearts pounded in their chests, and their breaths came in ragged gasps. It was behind them now, louder, closer. The drumming and chanting seemed to follow them, growing louder with each passing moment. It was as if the forest itself was hunting them. Shadows moved unnaturally in the fading light, darting between trees. The forest was alive with movement, and the trio felt a growing sense of dread. "Run!" Holly screamed as they crashed through the forest, hearts pounding, lungs burning. They ran blindly, driven by fear and adrenaline. Figures unseen but felt were hunting them. The sense of being watched had turned into a terrifying reality. They could feel the presence of something malevolent, something that wanted to harm them. Jake swore he could hear breath behind him, heavy and ragged. It was as if something was right on their heels, ready to pounce. Just as darkness swallowed them whole, they burst out of the tree line and into the open field they had parked beside hours earlier. The sudden change in scenery was disorienting, but they didn't stop running until they reached their car. Gasping for air, they turned around, but there was nothing, only the stillness of the woods and the silence that came after the hunt had ended. The forest stood silent and still, as if nothing had happened. Have you ever found yourself hopelessly lost in the woods? The feeling of disorientation, the sense of being watched, the fear of the unknown, it's a primal fear that taps into our deepest instincts. Beware, stay vigilant, because there are terrifying ancient tribe peoples in the woods that few have ever seen and lived to talk about. These beings are said to be the guardians of the forest, protecting it from intruders and punishing those who dare to venture too deep. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and follow us for more. We have many more tales of mystery and adventure to share. Join us on TikTok and YouTube for more bone-chilling chronicles, if you dare.